Ethan James couldn't believe his eyes when the invitation arrived. Humanity had just made its first contact with an alien species, the Ithrex, an ancient and advanced civilization from the far reaches of space, and somehow he was part of the historic event. He had always dreamed of space travel and alien encounters, but being chosen as one of the diplomats to represent Earth felt surreal. Now he was being invited for something even more unexpected, an alien sleepover. He had read the official messages, seen the broadcasts from the Ithrex's emissary, Zura, who spoke calmly with a grace and intelligence that could make anyone feel humble. But a sleepover? Was this some kind of joke? Ethan rubbed his eyes and looked at the invitation again, blinking at the shimmering hologram that floated in front of him. Dear human representative, you are invited to participate in an evening of cultural exchange aboard the Ithrex ship. It will be a casual, informal gathering. A sleepover designed to build a deeper understanding between our species. Please join us at your earliest convenience. It was strange. The Ithrex were known for their vast intelligence and peaceful intentions, yet this sleepover didn't seem to fit the usual formalities of a first meeting between species. What were they expecting from him? The thought left Ethan feeling more curious than nervous, though his mind raced with 1,000 questions. Was he expected to bring something? What did Ithrex do at a sleepover? Did they even sleep? The flight to their massive ship was just as strange. Ethan had boarded the sleek shuttle, his thoughts filled with anticipation and doubt. The Ithrex ship loomed in front of him, a massive structure that resembled a floating city, built from materials that shimmered like liquid metal. The shuttle was drawn toward it by some unseen force, the ship's gravity field gently pulling him into its belly. Once inside, Ethan could hardly believe his eyes. It was nothing like the spaceships of Earth. The hallways stretched impossibly far, curved and twisting like organic veins of some vast living creature. The walls seemed to pulse with a soft light, and the air smelled faintly of something unfamiliar, clean, but not quite like anything he had ever known. Zura, the emissary, greeted him personally at the docking bay. She was tall, her translucent skin glowing with soft blues and purples. Her eyes were deep, filled with an ancient wisdom that made Ethan feel like a child in comparison. Her voice, though, was kind, warm, even. "Welcome, Ethan James," Zira said, her words smooth and precise. "We are grateful for your participation. This evening is very important. It will help us understand you as a people, and in turn, help you understand us." The way she spoke felt almost intimate. It wasn't a conversation between diplomats. It was more like a meeting of minds, a deep personal exchange. Still, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. An alien sleepover wasn't exactly what he had imagined when he first signed up to represent Earth. Zura led him through the halls, explaining their purpose. The Ithrex were curious about humanity, not just intellectually, but emotionally. They had studied Earth for centuries, observing human progress and resilience. Now they wanted to understand the heart of humanity, what made humans so resilient, so unpredictable. As they reached the room where the sleepover would take place, Zira's eyes glinted with something Ethan couldn't quite place. "We hope this experience will be enlightening," she said, her voice softer now, almost whispering. Ethan swallowed hard, wondering what he was about to get into. This sleepover was starting to feel less like a casual event and more like an experiment. And he, it seemed, was the subject. Ethan stepped into the Ithrex ship, his eyes wide with awe. It was nothing like any spacecraft he had ever imagined. On Earth, ships were sleek, metal, and cold, designed for efficiency and survival. But this place, it felt alive. The walls of the ship were made of shimmering material that seemed to ripple as he walked past, glowing softly in colors that shifted with every step. The hallways curved in odd angles, stretching in ways that defied the laws of physics. It was like walking through a dream. Zira led the way, her tall figure moving effortlessly through the ship. Her glowing skin seemed to blend with the light, making her appear almost otherworldly. The ship's gravity was gentle, and Ethan noticed it was different from Earth's gravity, lighter, yet comfortable, almost like floating. As he walked behind Zira, he couldn't help but wonder about the kind of beings that could design something like this. He had always thought of space as a harsh, cold frontier, but here it felt like a second home. They arrived at a room that looked like something out of a science fiction novel, an enormous space with walls that seemed to breathe, shifting and changing with the flick of a thought. There were comfortable seating areas that appeared out of thin air, soft, glowing cushions that floated just above the ground. In the center, a table materialized, covered in a variety of foods, none of which he could recognize. The smell was sweet, yet sharp, and it made Ethan's stomach rumble despite his nervousness. "This is where we will spend the night," Zira explained, her voice calm and soothing. "This room is designed to adapt to our needs, just as we adapt to yours. Please, make yourself comfortable." Ethan took a seat, feeling both out of place and strangely at ease in the strange surroundings. He had expected something more formal. An official meeting, maybe, but this felt personal. It was as if the Ithrex wanted to create a space where humans and aliens could meet without the usual boundaries. Zira sat across from him, her glowing eyes studying him closely. "We Ithrex have studied your kind for many years. We've observed your achievements, your conflicts, your growth. But there is one thing we don't fully understand: the depth of your emotions. It is something we've never been able to grasp." Ethan blinked, not sure if he had heard correctly. "You don't understand emotions?" he asked, his voice tentative. Zira nodded. "We do not experience emotions the way humans do. For us, logic and reason guide our actions, but your emotions, they are powerful. They shape your decisions, your relationships, your very existence. We seek to understand this." Ethan was surprised. He had always thought of the Ithrex as far more advanced than humans. Their technology, their wisdom, they had seen things and understood the universe in ways that Earth's scientists could only dream of. But emotions, he had never imagined that the Ithrex, beings who seemed to know everything, could have such a blind spot. Zira's eyes softened. "We believe that your emotions hold the key to something far greater than just individual lives. They are a force that drives you, that makes you unique in the galaxy. We wish to experience them, to understand them, not just through logic, but through feeling." Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had always known humans were different, but hearing an alien race admit that they couldn't understand something so deeply human was strange. He felt a tug of curiosity, wondering what the Ithrex would learn from him. Could they truly understand human emotions? As the night went on, the conversation grew deeper. Zira shared stories of her people, stories of ancient spacefaring journeys and civilizations lost to time. She spoke of galaxies and stars, of alien cultures, and how they had interacted with other races. Yet despite all the knowledge she had, it was clear that she was still searching for something that no amount of technology could explain. Ethan found himself drawn in, fascinated by her words, but also by the openness of the Ithrex. They weren't just looking for information. They were searching for a connection, a deeper understanding. Just as he thought the conversation might end, Zira looked at him with intensity. "Would you allow me to understand more?" she asked, her voice softer now. "Would you let me experience your emotions?" Ethan paused, the weight of her request settling on him. It was a simple question, but one that felt much more significant. Was he ready to let an alien experience his feelings, his deepest thoughts? Could he trust the Ithrex with something so personal? The air between them seemed to hum with possibility, and Ethan knew that this was only the beginning of something far greater than he had ever imagined. Ethan sat back, his mind racing. Zira's request echoed in his thoughts. Would you let me experience your emotions? He had only known this alien being for a few hours, yet she was asking him to share something so deep, so personal. Could he trust her with something so vulnerable? He had been chosen to represent humanity, to bridge the gap between Earth and the Ithrex. But this felt different. This wasn't a diplomatic gesture. This was something far more intimate. Zira's eyes, glowing softly with a calming light, watched him closely, her expression unreadable. There was no pressure in her tone, no urgency, just a quiet, almost gentle request. We Ithrex have never fully understood human emotions. We can study them, observe them, but we can never truly feel them as you do. I believe the only way we can begin to understand your species is to experience them directly. Ethan swallowed hard. He had heard stories of alien species who communicated through advanced technology. But this was different. He was being asked to connect with an alien on an emotional level in a way he never imagined. The thought sent a shiver down his spine. Why me? Ethan finally asked, his voice almost a whisper. Why do you need me to share my emotions? Zira's expression softened, and she took a slow, measured step closer. Because you are human. Your emotions shape everything about you. Your fears, your joys, your love and pain. It's what makes your species unique. We Ithrex are logical, analytical. But you are driven by feeling. We need to understand that if we are to truly communicate with you, to understand your culture. Ethan felt the weight of her words. He had never thought about emotions in the way she described. To him, they were simply part of life. He had always laughed, cried, loved, and hated without giving it much thought. But hearing an alien being speak of emotions as a mystery, a power that they couldn't quite grasp, made him realize just how powerful they were. His mind flashed to his own life. The happiness he'd felt as a child when he first saw the stars. The anger and frustration he felt in high school when he couldn't seem to fit in. The deep love he had for his family and friends. And yes, the pain of loss, of saying goodbye to loved ones. Could Zira really understand that? Could anyone from her kind? He looked at her, her glowing eyes filled with sincere curiosity, and for the first time, he felt a strange connection. Zira wasn't just asking to study human emotion for the sake of knowledge. She was asking to experience it, to share in it. It was an offer of trust, and somehow, despite the nervousness in his gut, he found himself wanting to take that step. I don't know, Ethan replied, his voice shaky. This isn't something I've ever thought about. Sharing my feelings. It's not something I'm used to. Zira nodded, her expression thoughtful. It's understandable. This is not easy, but it will help us understand you. We do not wish to invade your mind, but we would like to understand, to feel what you feel. Just for a moment. Ethan's heart raced. Could he really let her in like that? Could he open up to an alien being in a way he never had with anyone else? There was a vulnerability in that idea, a rawness that made him hesitate. But then he thought about what this could mean, not just for the Ithrex, but for humanity. If this exchange worked, if they could truly understand human emotions, it might change everything. The Ithrex weren't just offering knowledge. They were offering something deeper, a connection between species that could last for centuries. Taking a deep breath, Ethan made up his mind. All right, I'll do it, he said, his voice steady now. But just for a moment. And you have to promise me you won't abuse it. I trust you, but this is still me. My emotions. Zira smiled, a soft, understanding expression crossing her face. I promise. We will not harm you. Ethan James, this will only be a moment, a fleeting connection, but it will give us insight into what makes humanity human. As she spoke, a wave of calm washed over him, and he knew that this decision, however strange, was the right one. With a nod, he closed his eyes, preparing himself for something he never thought would happen. The connection between them was about to begin. Ethan's heart pounded as he sat across from Zira. The air between them seemed to hum with anticipation, like a quiet storm waiting to burst. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and tried to calm the nerves that had suddenly taken over his body. He had agreed to let Zira experience his emotions, but now that the moment was here, he wasn't sure what to expect. Zyra's voice broke through his thoughts, calm and soothing. "Relax, Ethan James. There is no need to fear. I will guide you through this." He nodded, his throat dry. He didn't know how to explain what he felt. How could he put his complex emotions into a form that an alien could understand? But Zira wasn't asking for explanations. She wanted to feel what it meant to be human. And that, in itself, made him wonder if he could even explain it. He let out a slow breath and focused on his memories, his feelings, his life. He began with something simple, something he could understand. The joy of childhood. The first time he looked up at the stars, the feeling of wonder that made him dream of space. Zyra's presence seemed to grow stronger, her energy field surrounding him, almost as if she were absorbing his thoughts. His memories of family came next, moments of warmth and love that filled his heart. He thought of his mother's smile when he was a child, her comforting touch when he was sad, and the way his father had always been there to support him. His emotions, so deeply tied to those memories, seemed to surge up, alive and vibrant. Zira was silent, her glowing eyes closed in concentration, as if feeling the emotions he offered her. Ethan wasn't sure if she could truly grasp the feelings, but somehow he felt a connection between them, a bridge being built between two completely different species. Then his thoughts drifted to more difficult memories. The grief of loss, the pain of saying goodbye. He remembered his best friend, Jason, who had died in a car accident when they were just out of high school. The emptiness that followed, the overwhelming sadness that seemed impossible to overcome. That raw emotion, deep and unrelenting, was something that only humans seemed to understand fully. The way pain lingered, how it shaped their decisions and their lives. Zira's energy field shifted as if reacting to the intensity of his emotions. Ethan could almost feel her struggling to comprehend the weight of what he was sharing. How could she? She had no frame of reference for such deep sorrow. She was a being of logic, of reason. Could someone like her truly understand something as chaotic and painful as loss? He didn't know how long they sat in silence. The moments stretched on, blending together, as the ship's soft hum filled the background. But finally, after what felt like an eternity, Zira opened her eyes. They were different now. There was a softness in her gaze, a new understanding there that hadn't been before. "Your pain," she said softly, her voice almost reverent. "It is overwhelming, but beautiful in its own way. It shapes you, doesn't it?" Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "Yeah, it does." Zira seemed to take a moment to process his words, her mind no doubt working through what she had just experienced. "I can feel it," she said slowly, "the way your emotions are not just reactions, but choices. The way you push forward even when it hurts. It is extraordinary." Ethan felt a sense of vulnerability wash over him, but also something else. Pride. It was as if, for the first time, someone outside of humanity truly understood what it meant to be human. And it wasn't just about the good emotions, the happiness, the love. It was the struggles, the sorrow, the pain that shaped their lives. They all fit together, part of a larger whole. Zira sat back, her expression deep in thought. "You are right," she said finally. "Your emotions are what set you apart. They are not a weakness. They are a strength." Ethan's heart raced at her words. He had always seen emotions as something to manage, something to control, but hearing them spoken of like that made him see them in a new light. They were the driving force behind humanity's greatest achievements, and in that moment, he realized how much strength lay in simply being human. "Thank you," Zyra added, her voice gentle. I understand now. You are not like us. You are far more complex. But that is what makes you special." Ethan smiled, a wave of gratitude washing over him. Maybe humanity wasn't so small after all. Maybe in some ways, they were exactly what the galaxy needed. And for the first time, he felt truly proud to be human. Ethan sat in silence as the weight of what had just happened settled over him. Zira had experienced his emotions, understood them in a way that felt profound. It was as if a curtain had been pulled back, revealing something he had always known but never fully appreciated. His emotions, his pain, his joy, his love, his sorrow, were not just random, fleeting feelings. They were the core of what it meant to be human. And now, Zira understood that too. The soft hum of the Ithrex ship filled the room, a constant, calming presence, but it didn't ease the swirling thoughts in Ethan's mind. What did this all mean? He had come here to represent Earth, to be part of a historic first meeting with an alien species, but now it felt like something far bigger was happening, something that could change the course of history. Zira's voice broke through his thoughts. "Ethan James, I must thank you," she said, her tone sincere. "What you have shared with me, it is more than I ever expected. I have learned more in this brief time than I ever thought possible." Ethan met her gaze, unsure of what to say. He hadn't expected to share so much of himself, and yet he had. "I didn't know what to expect either," he admitted. "I never realized how powerful emotions could be, how much they shape everything we do. I always just thought of them as something you deal with. But now, I think I get it." Zira nodded slowly. "That is the beauty of what you have shown me. Emotions are not just reactions to events. They are a force, a guiding power in your lives. You, humans, live by them in a way that no other species I know does." Ethan felt a surge of pride mixed with a strange sense of humility. He had always taken his emotions for granted, never fully considering how different they made humanity. He realized now that what made humans unique was not just their ability to feel, but their ability to choose what those feelings meant, how they acted upon them, and how they shaped their world. No other species seemed to have this depth, this complexity. "Do you still wish to understand more?" Ethan asked cautiously, his curiosity piqued. "I mean, I don't know if I can explain it all. Emotions are messy. They don't always make sense." Zira's eyes sparkled, filled with the same quiet intensity that had drawn him in from the beginning. "I wish to understand as much as you can share. There is so much more to learn from you, from your species. Your emotions are your greatest strength, but they also cause you pain. It is a paradox that fascinates me." Ethan thought about her words. The way Zira spoke about human emotions, it wasn't with judgment or pity, but with a kind of reverence. She saw them as something important, something worth studying, something that gave humanity strength. He could see how much this meant to her. The Ithrex were beings of logic and reason, but they were now learning the beauty and complexity of feelings. "I can show you more," he said after a moment, surprising himself with his own willingness. He felt a strange connection with Zira now, as if they had crossed some invisible threshold. He wasn't just representing Earth anymore. He was sharing something fundamental about humanity itself. Zira nodded, her glowing form almost shimmering in the dim light. "Please," she said softly. "I want to understand everything you are." Ethan took a deep breath and began. This time, he chose to share his happiest memory, a moment from his childhood. He thought of the time he spent with his younger sister, playing in their backyard under the sun. The laughter, the freedom, the joy of being so young and innocent, untouched by the worries of the world. He could almost feel the warm summer breeze, the sound of their voices filling the air. Zira's presence around him seemed to pulse, and Ethan could feel her absorbing the emotions that came with that memory. He didn't need to say anything more. She was there with him, experiencing it all. When the memory faded, Zira's voice was soft. "I understand now. The joy of childhood, the way you feel invincible, carefree, it is a beautiful thing. And I understand the sadness that follows as you grow older, the loss of innocence, how you carry that joy with you, even when life becomes difficult." Ethan looked at her, surprised by how deeply she seemed to grasp what he was sharing. The connection between them was undeniable now. He wasn't just sharing memories. He was sharing his very soul. "I never thought an alien could understand what it's like to be human," Ethan said quietly. "But I think you do." Zira's smile was gentle, her eyes filled with something like admiration. "You are not as alone as you think, Ethan James. We may be different, but there is much we share. I hope this understanding will build something greater between us." Ethan nodded, feeling a sense of hope he hadn't expected. What started as a strange invitation to a sleepover had turned into something far more significant. The Ithrecs weren't just studying humanity, they were learning to connect with it. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of a new chapter for both Earth and the stars. The days that followed felt like a blur to Ethan. Every time he thought about what had happened on the Ithrec ship, his mind couldn't quite grasp it all. He had shared emotions, raw, powerful feelings, with Zira, an alien. They had connected on a level he hadn't known was even possible, and it had left him with more questions than answers. But there was something else, something he couldn't ignore. The bond between him and Zira had grown. It wasn't just a simple exchange of knowledge anymore. It felt like the beginning of something much deeper. With each conversation, each shared emotion, he could sense her presence more and more. She wasn't just the distant, analytical Ithrecs ambassador anymore. She was someone who understood him, in a way that no one else ever had. Zira had begun to open up more as well. She shared more about her people, about the Ithrecs and their journey through the stars. She told him stories about her species' history, how they had once been divided into different tribes, each with its own way of thinking, until they discovered the power of logic and unity. They had left their home planet to explore the stars, seeking knowledge, but always guided by their need to understand. It wasn't always this way, Zira had told him one evening, her voice carrying a trace of nostalgia. "We were once like you, divided by emotions and personal desires. It was only when we embraced logic and reason that we began to truly understand the universe. But there is something we missed, something we now realize we cannot live without." Ethan had listened, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. The Ithrecs had chosen a path that had brought them wisdom and progress, but at what cost? They had no real understanding of what it meant to love, to grieve, to celebrate life in all its messy, complicated forms. They had achieved so much, but it had come at a price. "We can calculate, we can reason, but we cannot feel the way you do," Zira had continued, her voice tinged with something like longing. "And that is why we need to understand you, Ethan James. That is why we need to understand humanity." Ethan felt the weight of her words. The Ithrecs had chosen their path, and in doing so, they had abandoned something crucial. They had built their empire on knowledge and logic, but they lacked the thing that made humans so unique: emotions, the things that made them cry, laugh, and love. The things that made them human. It made him wonder, could humanity be the key to something even bigger? Could the Ithrecs learn from them, not just about emotions, but about how to live fully, how to embrace both the light and the dark of existence? "I don't know if we're the answer to everything," Ethan had replied, his voice thoughtful. "Humans are messy. We fight, we hurt each other, we make mistakes. But I think that's what makes us stronger. We don't have everything figured out, but we're always moving forward. We're always learning." Zira had nodded, her glowing eyes reflecting something deeper now. An understanding, a respect. "That is what makes you so fascinating. You do not give up, even when it is hard. You find strength in your struggles, in your pain." The conversation had stayed with Ethan for days. As he looked out at the stars, thinking about the Ithrecs and their need to understand humanity, he realized something. This bond, this connection, was more than just a study of emotions. It was about something deeper. It was about learning how to live, not just survive. The Ithrecs needed humans as much as humans needed the Ithrecs. They were two species on different paths, but both seeking something more, something that went beyond knowledge and logic. Ethan couldn't help but feel a sense of responsibility. He wasn't just representing Earth anymore. He was part of something much bigger, a new chapter in the galaxy. And if he and Zira could find a way to bridge their worlds, it might change everything. Not just for the Ithrics, but for humanity itself. He looked at Zira, who was sitting quietly beside him, her eyes fixed on the stars. There was a quiet understanding between them now. No words were needed. They both knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. They were no longer just alien and human. They were something more. And as the ship drifted through the vast expanse of space, Ethan knew that whatever the future held, he was ready for it. With Zira by his side, they would explore the unknown, not just with logic and reason, but with the power of emotions, the force that made them truly alive. The stars outside the window shimmered like diamonds, endless and distant, yet close enough to touch. Ethan stood there, gazing at the vastness of space, his thoughts heavy with the journey that lay ahead. The Ithrex ship had been quiet for hours, almost as if it were holding its breath, waiting for something. But what that something was, Ethan didn't quite know yet. He had shared his emotions with Zira. He had allowed her to experience the depth of human feelings, the joy, the sadness, the love, and the pain. And in return, she had shown him the beauty of her people's logic, their thirst for knowledge, and the calm strength they possessed. The connection between them had deepened. They had learned from each other in ways neither had expected. But the question still lingered. Could this bond be the start of something larger? Could humans and the Ithrex truly find a way to coexist, to learn from each other, to build a future together? Ethan turned away from the window, his eyes searching for Zira. She was standing by the ship's console, her attention focused on the data flowing across the screen. She hadn't said much in the past few hours, but he could sense her presence. It was like she was always there now, a constant companion, not just a leader of her people, but someone who had become a part of his own journey. Zira, Ethan called softly. She turned, her glowing eyes meeting his. Yes, Ethan. I've been thinking, he began, his voice steady but thoughtful, about everything that's happened, about what you and I have shared. I think we're at the beginning of something bigger than just us. Zira regarded him quietly for a moment, her expression unreadable. But then, a small smile tugged at the corners of her lips. I agree, she said simply. What we have built here, it is more than just an exchange of knowledge. It is a foundation for something that could change both of our worlds. Ethan felt a surge of hope rise within him. It wasn't just about sharing emotions or bridging two species cultures. It was about creating a future where humanity and the Ithrex could live, learn, and grow together. We've learned so much, Ethan said, his voice gaining strength. But we've also only scratched the surface. What if we could help each other in ways we haven't even thought of yet? Zira's eyes sparkled, as if she were seeing a vision of the future unfold before her. What if, she mused, humanity's emotions, your ability to feel deeply, to struggle, to grow, could help us find balance? And what if our logic, our knowledge, could help you explore the universe in ways you've never imagined? Ethan's heart swelled with possibility. It was true, humans and the Ithrex were different, but they were also complementary. Where humans lacked the sharp precision of logic, the Ithrex had it in abundance. And where the Ithrex lacked the deep emotional depth that shaped humanity, humans had it in spades. Together, they could be stronger, more complete. I think we could build something incredible, Ethan said, his voice filled with excitement. Not just for ourselves, but for all the species out there. We could be the example, the proof that different worlds, different ways of thinking, can work together. Zira stepped closer, her presence reassuring, almost calming. Yes, Ethan James, we could change the galaxy. Not just through our knowledge, but through our willingness to understand each other, to learn from each other. Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. He had been chosen to represent humanity, to speak for Earth in this strange new world. But now he realized he was more than just a representative. He was a part of something larger, something that could bring two worlds together for the betterment of all. "Do you think the Ithrex will accept this?" he asked. "Accept that we can learn from each other?" Zura's smile was small but confident. "I believe they will. It will take time, but we have already proven that it is possible. The Ithrex are logical, but they are not blind. They see the value in what we have learned together." Ethan felt a deep sense of gratitude. The journey he had begun had led him to this moment. He had learned more about himself, about humanity, and about the universe than he ever thought possible. And in the process, he had found a bond with Zura, an Ithrex who had become more than just an alien. She was now his ally, his partner in this shared dream. Together, they would face whatever challenges the future held, united by a common goal: to bridge the gap between their worlds and show the galaxy what could be accomplished when two very different species dared to understand each other. As the stars stretched out before them, vast and endless, Ethan knew one thing for sure: the journey was just beginning. And with Zura by his side, they were ready to face whatever came next, together.